President.
Senator from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, Mr. President, today I rise in absolute awe, remaining awe of what happened in this country and in this world 50 years ago, this week. I am still inspired by the events of our space program of 50 years ago. 50 years ago today, Americans of all ages in every corner of this great nation, and in fact all over the world, stopped what they were doing to watch in complete awe as Apollo 11 launched from Cape Kennedy, headed toward the moon. It's unbelievable what we saw, what we witnessed that entire week. It would be the first time that humans would set foot on another celestial body other than the Earth. We would set foot on the moon, that which had captured the imagination of the world since time began, of trying to reach that big round object in the sky. It was a remarkable feat, made possible by the sheer determination and grit of the American space program and all of those who participated in it. You know, I was just a kid growing up in Alabama at the time. I lived just a few hours, just 2 or 3 hours south of what was known as Rocket City, still known as Rocket City because of all the work at NASA and our space program today. It's Huntsville, Alabama. It was a thriving metropolis then and even more so today. That's where all of the rockets were built. That's where the engines, the powerful engines that drove the rockets into space were built. They were tested in Huntsville, Alabama. Some of those stands, most of them are still there. If you go today, some of them are about to be used again. Those Saturn V, the most powerful rocket engines man had ever created, were built in Huntsville, Alabama, and they were the engines that would propel man to the moon. I was absolutely mesmerized by all things involving the space program. I still am. I can remember so many times my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, Oliver Wesson, who I called Pawpaw. We would just sit and watch for hours and listen to the commentary. We'd watch the liftoffs. We'd watch the splashdowns. Some of my best memories as a kid were literally sitting in front of a TV set with my granddad, watching the heroes that I saw, the heroes I wanted to be, the heroes that America wrapped their arms around. There was nothing at the time, and maybe to some extent today, nothing more than I wanted to do be an astronaut than to go in space. It sounds corny for an old man like me to say that, but it is absolutely true. Those astronauts, the original Mercury 7 astronauts, were heroes in every sense of the word. Their courage, not having a clue whether or not, when they blasted out from Florida, whether or not they would return safely. And we did lose astronauts along the way. You know, I did so many things. I read, I studied, I watched, I read papers. A lot of papers in my grammar school, in junior high and high school, were all written about the space program. I'm a memorabilia collector, as many of you may know, and including autographed baseballs. I've got a few autographed baseballs by some of the astronauts, but the ones I like most are the newspapers. From the time I could see, everybody could sense something special, and from the time Apollo 11 took off from Cape Kennedy to the time the headlines in the Birmingham News said, "Man sets foot in heavens," to the time they splashed down, I collected and saved every one of those newspapers. They're still at home, and they're a prized possession. We watched every single launch. We knew every name of every astronaut. We stood there with intense, mesmerizing attention to every moment of those launches. It was something that captivated this entire country. It was a unifying time. It was a unifying force at a time when America needed it. The 1960s, 1969 for Apollo 11, it was a time when we needed that sense of collective pride. We needed that sense of unification. We had gone through tough times during the civil rights era. We had gone through, and we're still in the midst of the Vietnam War and all that tore this country asunder. We saw all that had happened in 1968. We saw the deaths of John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King. But the space program was that one sense of pride. It didn't take a tragedy to unify America at that time. It took success. It took a build of what we do. It took our determination. It took knowing that we were the most patriotic and we were doggone to beat those Russians to the moon. Sounds so corny these days, but it is absolutely the case. We were going to do it. It was going to be the United States of America, and doggone, we did it. You know, a lot has changed. Today, we're building on this legacy. We are still building on this legacy in space. We're building it in Huntsville, Alabama, and elsewhere with NASA. And we're going to continue to inspire a new generation and more generations to come of Alabamians and Americans, people all across this country, to help us reach even loftier heights. Yes, a lot has changed since 1969, 50 years ago. But there's a reason that space flight and exploration of other worlds continues to capture our attention and to capture our imaginations. It's because at the end of the day, we are all dreamers. We always dream to those loftier heights. We always want to achieve. We always want to make this country great. Consistently make this country great. We always want to reach for the stars, whether it's in our personal lives or whether it is collectively as a country. That's what we do. We are dreamers. So today, 50 years after the launch of Apollo, and on Saturday we will celebrate 50 years of the actual steps on the lunar surface. Today we celebrate the achievement of a dream 5 decades ago, but a dream that started long, long before that. Long before President Kennedy challenged America to put a man on the moon. But looking back, it was really just the beginning 50 years ago. It showed us that a true moonshot was possible and quite literally opened our world to new possibilities. Today, we are reaching for human space flight back to the moon, to Mars, and it's not just us. Other countries are doing the same. We're looking for a return flight to the moon for deeper exploration. We're receiving pictures from the furthest reaches of the galaxy, things we have never seen before. We have seen the surface. We have landed rovers on the moon's surface and have seen the pictures and done the test. Just unbelievable. Who would have ever thought it some 50, 60 years ago when I was a kid? Today, we have a greater understanding of the universe around us and how we can apply that knowledge to our own lives. And we continue to reach for the stars. Yes, Mr. President, a lot has changed, but a lot hasn't. We still have divisions in this country. We still need that unifying voice. We still need that sense of pride that we can all, everybody, wrap their arms around. Today, we seem to be divided more than we were during the height of the Vietnam War. We seem to be divided over the very issues that my friend Senator Cornyn was talking about a moment ago with immigration. We're divided over politics and the partisan divide. We're divided over gun violence. We're divided, you name it, and we are divided. So we need that unifying voice. We need that unifying, something positive that we can all wrap our arms around. It's not just a holiday, and even sometimes now in today's world, unfortunately, even our holidays get divided. Even our holidays, people go to their corners for political reasons on both sides of the aisle. Make no mistake, folks, I'm not casting a stone one way or another. I'm casting it across this land. People are sensitive divided, and we have to honor the visionaries of long ago, as well as the visionaries today who think big and dream big and give our nation a collective sense of purpose and unity, a collective sense of unity and purpose, not a divisive sense of purpose or for their own benefit, but a collective sense of unity and purpose. We can honor those folks by setting aside all the differences that we see, that we can honor those folks by not going to our corners every time a hot button issue is mentioned, either here on the floor of the Senate or in a tweet or in a Facebook post or in the national news. We can set that aside. We can set aside by setting aside our differences. We honor folks by setting aside our differences today. We can honor those folks by remembering our collective pride in who we are as Americans, by making sure that all men and women are created equal, just in living up to the creed that we so proudly point to in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. We can do that again, and we can honor these visionaries by coming together, reaching across the aisle, but also reaching within our aisles to bring people together, to talk about those things that we can do together and point with a sense of pride. We can do it by once again being the leader of the world and not trying to go to everything alone, by bringing our friends and allies to join us in these collective efforts to make us stronger. Yes, Mr. President, we owe those folks a great debt of gratitude for making America a leader in space, a leader in the world, and giving us all something to dream about. Let us now meet that challenge in a different way. Let us continue to explore space. Let us continue to reach for the stars, but let us dedicate ourselves to becoming that unified voice so that something that we can all dream about is one America. One America, not a house divided, but one America for everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.